Well, everybody, it's that exciting time of a new patch where we've got new World of Warcraft cinematics dropping. This is the first of 3. There are 2 others. They're around 2 minutes each, and I believe they're the ones for, like, the end of the big new raid, which Blizzard have teased to be absolutely humongous. But this cinematic is one that takes place in the Battle for Ardenweald at the very start, and the reason why I've got these headphones on is I've got the cinematic with me. So, I think without any further ado, how about we go break down some lore together? You know, I'm very much thinking that judging in those the number of troops there for Team Ardenweald, this ain't looking good. This is not looking good for them whatsoever. Never mind. Okay, so that's interesting. Right, Tyrande kills that. But if you, I think, look there at the facial animations on her, if I step through them frame by frame, you can see, like, that is a bit of a look of surprise, right? You see her eye dart towards wherever Tyrande is, and I do think you see Sylvanas' eyes kind of, you know, her eyebrows go up a little bit. So is that indicating some surprise? Because I'm now kind of wondering, is this whole thing just trying to bait Tyrande out? Because Sylvanas obviously is going to know roughly what's up with Tyrande, and is probably going to want to take her out, given everything that's happened. I guess we'll see.
Tyrande, I understand you've been looking for me.
Okay, so if Sylvanas is saying she understands Tyrande's been looking for her, then that very much means Sylvanas knows what's going on. Now, of course, the last time that we saw Tyrande, and if you're not a Nightfall player, you won't have seen this, but we quest with Chandris, and we end up going and we basically free the Night Elf souls from Torghast. But Tyrande's completely enraged and basically just runs away, runs up the tower. And now she, I suppose, re-emerges. And she's re-emerging looking different here, because if you look at her little headpiece there, I mean, she's really pumped up on Team Elune, right? All this, like, cosmic stuff going on her forehead. Pretty cool design. Okay, let's see where it goes.
Come then. Show me Elune's wrath.
So, show me Elune's wrath. And the reason I pause here is, one of the things I'm interested in is the types of magic in the Warcraft universe. And it's happened a few times, right? Because there's a few different camps of people and different reactions to the Shadowlands main, like, CG cinematic that we saw at BlizzCon. Because there were so many people who were like, what? How did Sylvanas lose to the Lich King Bolvar? He's really big, he's really strong, he's got his big swingy hammer, obviously he's going to win here. You know, oh, Sylvanas just won because she used a bunch of magic chains. Now, the thing is, if you remember in patch 8.2.5, after Saurfang got defeated by Sylvanas, I think when you talk to Lorthamar, whatever one of the NPCs, they do mention it being a new form of, like, magic. And this is where we start to twig on that there's this type of death magic that is a bit new and different. Now, obviously that death magic would have defeated Bolvar, because a part of what makes the Lich King powerful is the death magic that comes from all the domination gear that he's wearing, which of course was originally made by the rune carver for the jailer, because the whole Lich King thing is one of the jailer's projects. So I guess what I want to find out here is, if we're talking about different types of magic and all the WoW cosmology, does Elune magic beat jailer death magic? I guess that's going to be one of the main things we'll learn in this cinematic, and I think that will have big implications. So let's watch on and see.
Elune gave me her strength. The wrath is mine alone!
Now, it's interesting saying the wrath is hers alone. There have been many other Night Warriors, I guess she's the only current one, but does that kind of mean there's only one Night Warrior at once? And then I suppose if the Night Warrior is supposed to be the, like, mortal avatar of Elune's fury and rage and all of that stuff, then I guess there only can be one at once. But then does that have any implications for how much the person in the Night Warrior state is actually in communications with Elune? I don't know, but I guess we're going to have to go through a pretty cool looking fight scene. And also, bit of a redesign, all the rune stuff, all that power on Tyrande, which I think probably means she's like going real big into the Elune stuff, right? This is probably like the most pumped up Night Warrior we've seen. You know, animation-wise, there's one thing I like there, and it's helped because this is animated, of course. They actually do look like they're swinging for each other, and just general animation, sound effects, very creamy. But it is what we've came to expect from the C dev team who does this stuff. And here we have it. Okay, so, right, Sylvanas is trying to do a Bolvar on her. Because as soon as these chains hit Bolvar, he was totally powerless. And as soon as this type of magic was used in Saurfang, he was just absolutely yeeted into oblivion, whatever. He was just totally destroyed. So I guess we're going to see something here.
I expected more.
I will take your head, Banshee! Just like I took his!
Okay. So, confirmation here. Elune beats Jailer. Rock, paper, scissors. I suppose we're working out what's going on with the cosmic forces, but evidently here... Now, there's a few different ways this could go. This is obviously the Jailer's death magic being totally overcame. So if Bolvar had access to this type of energy, then it obviously would have went very differently at the start of this expansion. And that in itself is interesting, because the whole thing about Bolvar is he does actually have some life in him. I mean, technically he's nature, because of Alexstrasza, he is death, he's like a whole bunch of different forces. But I suppose this is Tyrande with like the full power of Elune, whereas this is just Sylvanas using magic and using power that's been granted to her by the Jailer. So I then wonder if you're just, if you're going to have a fist fight between Elune and Zovaal, who wins? And I suppose, does Elune even have a physical form of sorts?
Just like I took his! Nathanos.
She has no idea. See, a lot of people thought that she left Nathanos at the Maris stead basically to be killed, so that when he was killed, he would go to the Shadowlands, where he could link up with Sylvanas, and then the two of them could be together again. But she seems surprised. Let's see where this goes. I maybe have a theory.
You didn't know. Your master is keeping secrets from you.
Well, now. Alright, flips and shit, that's all pretty cool. But Sylvanas here evidently does not know. And I think this is actually sowing a major goddamn seed. A major seed. Okay, right. Let me get something up in Wowpedia. My dudes, I think I have got some... I think I've got some big business, actually. I do. So I'm just going to read this from Wowpedia. And remember that in the Shadows Rising novel, Nathanos is basically... He's kind of in this quest to, like, mess up Bomsamdi and all of that stuff. So that's, like, his mission. But here's something. After dealing with another holdout of Bomsamdi's worshippers, Nathanos found himself faced with the ghost of Stefan Maris, which Nathanos saw as his one true regret. Despite declaring the ghost not real, when the spirit demanded to know how he could allow Sylvanas to sacrifice himself, Nathanos found himself justifying the action, showing that he believed the spirit to be his younger cousin. So that is Nathanos kind of like justifying to what he thinks is this spirit, him being sacrificed. I'll keep on going here. However, once Stefan declared his queen had made some nasty friends on the other side, and how the Lords of Death would never let her win, and she is chained to undeath, she will be chained to the forces of the Shadowlands, Nathanos quickly realized he was actually speaking to Bomsamdi, who had either sent a vision of or had appeared as Stefan to mock him. So that's actually kind of interesting. So Nathanos is basically justifying the whole plan of Team Death, but the way that Bomsamdi tries to, like, get at Nathanos is being like, hey dude, you're sacrificing your life for nothing, and you're doing it all for this lady Sylvanas, but Sylvanas' allies don't actually, respect her. They're not going to let her win her personal goals. So they set that up in the previous novel. And now here that they've set it up that, that the jailer actually has Nathanos' soul and is holding that out, right? Not telling Sylvanas. So in a way, Nathanos has had seeds of doubt placed in him by this sort of Bomsamdi vision. And I mean, Bomsamdi, right? He's freaking Bomsamdi. He knows stuff. He knows what's up. So that's him being suspicious. And now, based on what has just been said here, we've got to assume that the jailer is holding Nathanos in some way. But then also, if one of the last times we saw Tyrande is when she ran up Torghast, did she actually see Nathanos? So does she actually know more than we think? That is a bit of a thought. So, like, what happened, right, in the book is that ultimately Nathanos failed in the whole mission to take down Bomsamdi. And eventually it's decided that he just goes back to the Maris homestead, which is basically his house, to await further orders. Now, of course, we don't know if any further orders came or what was going on, but Sylvanas obviously did not plan for him to just get himself killed at the hands of Tyrande, as we saw in that cinematic at the very start of this expansion. So that means that he had some unfinished business on Azeroth. And I mean, of course, we all know what happened, right? Those Argent scouts ended up finding Nathanos. Tyrande kills him. We end up entering the Shadowlands pretty shortly after. So this is interesting stuff for Sylvanas. A lot of us have been wondering, is she going to flip? And if you read our lore video, or watched our lore video about Sylvanas and like the other shard of her soul that we think the jailer actually has control of and is keeping away from her, is this another example of, really in a way, the jailer holding back Sylvanas' humanity sort of away from her? Is he trying to use that as leverage? So I think this is really big. And Sylvanas has made rash emotional decisions before. That's like a part of the point of her character. She snaps. I mean, she totally gave up the goose in 8.2.5 when she just admitted she actually didn't give a damn about the Horde anyway, that it was all just something she was using. Now, if she was being super smart and a cool cucumber and really composed, she would have let that entire war go on for longer and longer and longer to inflict more death and misery to power up the jailer's forces. But no, she snapped. So now we have this situation where Folk and Fairy Tales is telling us that a part of Sylvanas' soul is basically maybe even being dangled in front of her as a carrot. And now she's just found this out. So will she snap against the jailer at some point? I mean, I believe it was Ian or something. No, it wasn't Ian. It was somebody anyway on the WoW team in a recent interview did say that, like, at the end of this patch, we're going to be wondering what's next for Sylvanas. So we know she doesn't die at the end. Of course, we defeat her in the raid, but we don't know really what her fate is. And if we expect Sylval to actually win, right, for the jailer's plan to actually come to fruition, then that's going to leave Sylvanas in a bit of a tricky situation, because it'll be a case of, well, does Sylval hold up his end of the deal? I think we need to watch on, though, because I think more stuff can happen here.
They've broken through! Fall back! Fall back!
Well, that's that confirmed. This whole thing has been a ruse.
Trick. No! Eluna.
Okay, so it's just the whole thing of Sylvanas has been trying to, logically and stuff. She's totally fooled everyone. And I imagine this is exactly what leads to Team Jailer getting the sigil at the heart of Ardenweald. But I guess it's that thing. Sylvanas has won, but she's taken an emotional hit, right, to the core of her person. with Nathanos, who I do believe she actually does care about. So I think that'll be big.
No! Eluna, it is time. Inqua Melema.
Okay, that is new. Right, Night Warriors can fly. Okay, that's powerful. I suppose this is the first time we have seen this pumped up a Tyrande, which then actually does make me wonder, because it's been very much teased that whenever a Night Warrior goes far too ham in their power, it can suddenly lead to them being very dead.
At last.
I mean, how is Sylvanas going to get out of this one? If Tyrande is this powerful, and I mean, for what Sylvanas did to her people, Tyrande's got to kill her, right? I mean, obviously.
Yet, the knight's power wanes. Once again, she denies you victory.
Mother Moon, do not forsake me. End this.
Interesting.
Bask in the dying embers of your goddess's bargain.
Bask in the dying embers of your goddess's bargain. Okay. Alright, I've actually got this one worked out. So, Tyrande, in Darnassian, pretty much says, my life for hers. Right? So, Tyrande basically plans to go so Night Warrior, right? To get so pumped up, so roided out, that that would kill her. Because she just wants Sylvanas to die. That's it. That's all she wants. She needs that vengeance for her people. So, when she's got her hands around Sylvanas' throat, which, by the way, I think there's a certain few places on the internet will enjoy that quite a lot. And also, Sylvanas, doesn't... It's interesting. Sylvanas doesn't breathe, right? Or, undeads don't need to breathe. But I guess they still do use their windpipe if they're in Sylvanas' configuration to speak, because Sylvanas does sound like she's being choked. But that's kind of besides the point. When Tyrande's going to, max out her energy to kill Sylvanas, that would kill Tyrande. And that is why Tyrande lost her power. Elune basically revoked it from her in order to prevent Tyrande from killing herself. I think. Because Tyrande's been a character who has served Elune, been good, all of that stuff for many, many, many thousands of years. So I think Elune legit just does not want Tyrande going and dying on her. Now, there is another side to this too. I mean, Elune is this humongous cosmic being, right? So, Elune is going to be operating on plans and timescales that really dwarf what any sort of mortal would experience. And that does make you think, well, sure, maybe Elune does care about Tyrande especially, and perhaps more than the other many Night Warriors who Elune was totally fine to let die for their Night Warrior power, by the time it maxed out. But what if Elune actually doesn't want Sylvanas to die at this stage? Because Elune could have just let Sylvanas die, because it's been established that whatever that Elune, sort of like moon, arcane, whatever magic, that beats jailer magic. So, in that case, does Elune actually have a further plan for Sylvanas? Is Elune actually thinking, oh, the Nathanos thing, the Courage Soul Fragment, is what's actually going on in here, that the jailer is being really horrible and abusive to Sylvanas, and essentially, does Elune see that as an opportunity to make Sylvanas flip? Because maybe if Sylvanas flips, well, the jailer can be surprised. Maybe somebody in his inner circle is able to thwart his plans. So there is another aspect there where, yes, I think it is overtly Elune preventing Tyrande from getting herself killed. But there could be a longer game. There could be a longer strategy to this one. Okay, let's see where the end of this goes.
Tyrande, nothing lasts.
Tyrande, can you hear me? Tyrande?
Okay, there we go. Right, there's actually a surprising amount to break down there. A surprising amount to break down. So what we've learnt here is that Elune power beats Sylvanas, right? Night Warrior beats Sylvanas. The Jailer's chains, she destroys them, which is then interesting because Elune has intervened in some times, but also not intervened in others. So, I mean, did Elune know that Ysera was basically going to go in there, save Tyrande's ass, and that Sylvanas would pretty much fly off anyway because her job is done? I mean, I do know from playing PTR, the next cinematic is the one where the dominated Anduin claims the sigil because of this, this entire ruse has been played by Sylvanas. Sylvanas and Anduin, an iconic duo working as a team. But yeah, I mean, man, if Elune allows Sylvanas to live, then that implies that Elune has got plans for Sylvanas. I mean, it is interesting because, okay, spoiler alert for later on in the campaign. In 3, 2, 1, we're in the spoiler zone. So this it's the sort of thing, right? I had no idea what this cinematic actually contained. All I knew is Tyrande, when you get back into the game, Tyrande's lying in a heap, clearly in a bit of a state. Now, later on, we of course know that Tyrande doesn't die, and we know that happens because of an intervention by Elune, where Elune basically, sort of just allows Tyrande to just sort of continue to exist, sort of with that power, right, in a way where she's not going to die, she's not going to burn out like all of the other Night Warriors past. So I think overall here, this is one of those things where they wanted to pull off a cool fight scene, and they definitely did. But I think they also did it knowing that you could poke a few little holes in this, but if you actually think about those things, it is all like really big powers that are looming like above these two characters, right? That's really what we're dealing with here. Where the key info we've learned is that Elune power beats Jailer power. At least it beats as much Jailer power as the Jailer has allowed Sylvanas to wield. And then the second bit of info is either a Night Warrior can only activate their most powerful state for a tiny period of time, such a tiny period of time it's almost useless, or Elune actually lets Sylvanas live by depowering Tyrande and taking her out of the Night Warrior state. In which case, what the hell is Elune playing at? Because like the whole thing that they were doing with characters like Delarin and like Syra was basically the Night Elves actually losing some hope. Being like, wow, Elune literally abandoned us. What the hell? We worshipped her for years. So there are bigger questions being raised here that I really feel are breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs for future lore. And then, of course, Nathanos. Because that Nathanos stuff is really big. Because here, I think we see that Sylvanas wins. Right? I mean, Team Jailer wins. They get the sigil. They win the battle for Ardenweald. At least they achieve their goal. But there's this thing going on with Nathanos, which means that Sylvanas is going to have even more mixed feelings. And if you remember back to the past cinematics with Sylvanas, Blizzard have absolutely flexed their ability to animate a face in order to show Sylvanas showing doubt at all of the stuff that Anduin was being put through. Because, of course, the whole thing with Sylvanas is the whole loss of free will thing. I mean, there's times she hasn't really given a shit about other people's free will, but in this case, they did choose to portray Sylvanas as very much being troubled by Anduin, sort of having the domination magic being used to dominate his will against his will. So she was ticked off with that. She is going to have serious questions for Zovaal regarding Nathanos. And I think in recent interviews, Blizzard haven't said anything about what Nathanos is going to do, but they very much went, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Nathanos, there's stuff at play here. So there you go. I think that if you were to say Sylvanas is in for some sort of, maybe not redemption arc, but her flipping sides, I mean, I even think about a character like Gromash, you know, who he sort of made, you know, try to make his, you know, do his things, and then he ended up flipping, you know, in a way, right? I just look at this and I think they are setting up so that Sylvanas flips. I mean, the other part of her soul, Zovaal seemingly has and is holding away from her. But then the question is, does Sylvanas even know about that? Because the character who knows about that is Verisa. So then you have to wonder, you know, will there be a patch 9.2 where Verisa is literally like, hey, you know the way that we all discovered this thing about Uther's split soul? Well, guess what, sis? The good part of your soul, the Ranger General that we all loved, that's over there. In the jailer's bedside locker. You know? And then Sylvanas is going to realize, holy shit, I am a shade of myself. I am all of my most, you know, bitter emotions. The good part of me has been locked away from me. And Nathanos, perhaps one of the only people who Sylvanas thinks understands her. You know, they certainly have a relationship or you know, something going on there. She just kind of realizes maybe two of the things, bar perhaps Verisa, that she cares about the most, are being held away from her by the jailer. And then she finally realizes, hang on, this Zovaal character truly is up to no good. And maybe he convinced me about the logic of his philosophy, but he's clearly, even if his philosophy is right, he would clearly use victory to ill ends. So there you go. That's where I'm left thinking about this. I hope you enjoyed this little dive into the lore, and certainly, if you have some theories, do let me know. I'm very keen to see how everyone's breaking this one down. So that is it for me, of course. By the time you see this, it'll be patch day for me. So I've got some stuff to be doing. And hey, if you are on the NA servers, well, you're already pretty well stuck into it, aren't you? All right, have a great day. There'll be another video up today, I believe. I'll see you next time.